Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Mimighoul Yugioh deck profile for post-Rage of the Abyss. The Mimighouls got a bunch of new support, including a couple Xyz monsters, some new main deck monsters, and some new spells to use with the deck as a whole. The deck focuses on being able to give your opponent your Mimighoul monsters, then activating the different card effects, whether you or your opponent have the Mimighoul monster. A lot of disruption power, and definitely a lot of cards that help with the overall playstyle of the Mimighoul deck. So very happy to bring you all an update of what the deck can do. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For our main go-to boss monster, we run 2 copies of Mimighoul Master. It cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects while your opponent controls any face-down monsters, or you control a Mimighoul monster other than Mimighoul Master. You can use each effect of the following of Mimighoul Master once per turn. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 Mimighoul monster from your deck to your hand, except for Mimighoul Master. And during your opponent's main phase quick effect, you can change 1 face-down monster on the field to face-up attack or defense. So this card just helps to enact the card effects for your Mimighoul cards. It's searchable with some of the other cards we run in the deck. That's why we only need the 2 copies. It's really just a card that helps to get the deck started on what it is meant to do. So I find 2 copies to be fine. For some of the other Mimighoul monsters, we're running 3 copies of Mimighoul Dragon. With its flip effect, if it is the main phase, apply these effects in sequence. Destroy all face-up monsters you control, except for Mimighoul monsters, and give control of this card to your opponent. So this is a monster that you would give to your opponent, and then when it's flip face-up, destroying all their other monsters aside from the Mimighoul monsters, and then shifting possession to you on your side of the field. And during your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field in face-down defense. And if it's normal or special summon, you can add 1 Mimighoul spell trap from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Mimighoul Dragon once per turn. So just having this search power as well on top of it makes it a definite 3 of for that easy setup and disruption it has for your opponent's cards. We're also running 3 copies of Mimighoul Archfiend. With this card having the same flip and sequence effects, your opponent draws 1 card, then send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard, and give control of this card to your opponent. So, since it'll be on your opponent's field, you will be drawing the card, and then your opponent will be the one discarding it since you gave them the Archfiend to use. Having the same flip and face-down option for this card, and if it's normal or special summon, you can change 1 face-down monster on the field to face-up attack position. So, additional disruption when you have this card to special summon it from your hand to your opponent's field face-down, and if it's normal or special summon, to change 1 face-down monster on the field to face-up to give you that extra push for 1 other Mimighoul monster they may have. And then we're running 2 copies of the new Mimighoul Slime. With this card having the same option for the flip, your opponent can special summon 1 Mimighoul monster from their deck to their field. So just giving you a Mimighoul monster makes Slime very, very useful for grabbing some of your other Mimighoul cards. So you can even special summon Master to your field and gain the search of the additional card thanks to Slime. And then also with this card, give control of it to your opponent. So then you'll have your own Mimighoul monster to use again. And if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card face up on your field. During your main phase, being able to special summon to your opponent's field face down, and if your opponent has that, then it's just an additional resource for you also. For the 1-ofs for the Mimighoul monsters, we run 1 copy of the original Mimighoul Cerberus. With this card, banish the top 3 cards of your deck, then special summon 1 of your banished monsters to your opponent's field in defense. So it's a little more inconsistent because you may not get a monster off of the banish for your opponent, and also having the same setup options. And then also with this card, during your main phase, being able to special summon it, and also your opponent cannot target face-up spells you control with card effects. So added protection for your own cards. 1 copy of the new Mimighoul Fairy. With this card, the turn you cannot activate the effects of monster special summon from your hand. So more restriction for your opponent when this card is flipped face up, and then giving control of it to your opponent. And then being able to special summon it face down. And with this card also, if you control a Mimighoul monster, you can special summon this card face up on your field. So just like Slime, it's just an additional resource to be able to summon on the field. With the last one being Mimighoul Armor. With this card, flip, if it's the main phase, apply these effects in sequence. This turn, Mimighoul monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Give control of this card to your opponent, and during main phase, being able to special summon it to your opponent's field face down, or if your opponent controls a monster, special summon it. So Slime, Fairy, and Armor all share the easy special summon resource to your field, and I believe they did this mostly so you have more resources to easily go into your Mimighoul Xyz monsters, whether it be your Giant Mimighoul or your Mimighoul Throne. For the rest of the main deck monsters, just a small hand trap lineup, 3 Ash Blossom, and then was deciding between Effect Veiler and Droll and Lockbird. It can be the player preference for this final spot if they want to go for 3 Effect Veiler or 3 Droll and Lockbird. Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill was also an option here. For the spells, 3 copies of Mimighoul Dungeon. Mimighoul monsters you control that were not normal or special summon this turn can attack equal to their original defense. Any player who controls a face-down monster cannot normal summon monsters nor declare an attack with monsters that were special summoned this turn. And during your main phase, you can add 1 Mimighoul monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So adding power makes this a very vital card in the deck. Search power, and then also just more restrictions to your opponent for their own cards. Now, ideally, you would maybe want to run 3 Mimighoul Maker. I have 1 copy of the new Mimighoul Charm. I wouldn't say it's the best card for the deck. It's more a situational card. Mimighoul Maker, you reveal 2 flip monsters with different names from your deck. Your opponent randomly picks one for you to special summon to their field in face-down defense and add the other one to your hand. So this card is great setup. Mimighoul Charm is just more of an extra deck shutdown once per chain. If a Mimighoul monster your opponent controls is flip face up, you can randomly choose 1 face-down card of your opponent's extra deck. And if it's a monster that can be special summon it to your field. So once again, just some specifics depending on the card. So if you wanted to, you could just stick to the 3 Mimighoul Maker for this spot. And then also the 2 copies of Mimighoul Fork with this card. Target 1 face-down monster your opponent controls. Your opponent chooses one of the following effects to apply. Change it to face-up attack or defense, or send it to the graveyard and its owner draws 2 cards. So then with this card, you make it so your opponent either flips the card face up or they'll give you 2 draws. So Mimighoul Fork is basically that fork in the road for the Mimighoul Dungeon, having the hard decision to choose which way you want to go. You can banish this card from your graveyard to add 1 Mimighoul Fork from your deck to your hand. So just having additional search for the one you may banish also. 3 copies of We're Off Now just to have more search for our level 1 monsters. You will take the burn damage if you did not normal summon the added monster or a card with the same name, but still just added search for additionally for more and more Mimighoul monsters. 2 copies of Book of Moon to potentially just reflip cards face down that your opponent may have gotten around the effect negation. And then lastly, the 1 copy of Call by the Grave. You don't want to run the Book of Moons, you can always try some of the other cards like Soul and Luna, and then also cards like our additional setup like Triple Tactics Talent. For the traps, we're running the 3 copies of Mimighoul Room. Special summon 1 Mimighoul monster from your hand or deck to your field, or in face-down defense to your opponent's field. Then you can change 1 face-up monster on the field to face-down defense. And you can banish this card from your graveyard, target any number of Mimighoul cards you control, and return them to the hand. So just ways to reuse your Mimighoul monsters thanks to this trap also. And then lastly, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, along with the Ash Blossom and the Droll and Lockbird lineup. Just, I would say, enough hand traps to be able to disrupt any plays your opponent may try to do. And the 1 there can only be 1. I like this card just because you can lock down your opponent for what they can go into with a variety of monsters who run the deck. Dragon, Zombie, Fiend, you name it, you give your opponent that card. And then if they had any additional monsters they want to try and summon at that card, they can't do so thanks to this card. And for the extra deck, I have 1 copy of Giant Mimighoul. This would honestly be 2 if you were to do so. You could drop down the copy of Mimighoul Throne to 1 for 2 copies of this card. Needing 2 level 1 monsters, your non-XYZ Mimighoul monsters can attack directly while your opponent controls a face-down monster. You can only use the following effects of Giant Mimighoul once per turn. If it succeeds summon, you can add 1 Mimighoul card from your deck to your hand. You could detach 1 material from this card, target face-up cards on the field up to the number of face-down cards your opponent controls, and destroy them. So destruction power, and also being able to inflict 1,000 points of damage for each card destroyed. It's set up, it gets around your opponent's monsters for your Mimighouls to be able to inflict damage. Definitely a very good card for the deck to use. And 2 copies of Mimighoul Throne. You can detach 1 material from this card, special summon 1 Mimighoul Master from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And during your main phase quick effect, you can target 1 Mimighoul Master you control, equip this card to it as an equip card, and give it 1,000 attack. Then you turn this card from the field to the hand up to the number of cards this card had. You can only use each effect of Mimighoul Throne effect per turn, and only once that turn. So the actual Throne for Master, and why we also reduce the number of Master in the deck. Potentially I want to try 1, but there is the risk with this card being able to have them special summon from your hand, deck, or graveyard. But if your opponent were to banish your Master, you'd be down 1. That's why I'm running the 2 count in the deck for it. Also, the 1 copy of number 13 and the 1 copy of number 31 for the additional, lockdown for the opponent's monsters using these 2 cards for their Xyz lineup. The 1 copy of Assembled Nightingale, the 1 Tantrum Toddler, the 1 Downer Magician, and the 1 Zeus for the rest of the Xyz monsters. And then for the Link monsters, 2 copies of Relinquish Anima for the added search that this card can provide for your lineup on the field, and just being able to then use your level 1 monsters to be able to summon a monster that you could also just use to take resources away from your opponent using this card on the field. That's why I like to run this card for the added lockdown play that it can provide, and also the 1 copy of Barricade Board Blocker, the 1 IP Masquerena, the 1 SP Little Knight, and the 1 Unicorn to finish off the extra deck. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, now with the new Mimighoul monsters, we have set up for our opponent with this card to special summon this card from your hand, or if you control a Mimighoul monster, special summon this card face up on your field. So all you need is that 1 additional resource for your Mimighoul cards, using these cards with that monster as well, being able to add additional search for your normal summoner set. So you can have a search with cards like Mimighoul Dragon, grabbing you a card you need from your deck to your hand that is a Mimighoul card, having then the special summon. If you're not giving the resource to your opponent, you're special summoning on your side of the field, you can then use those 2 monsters to be able to search and set up your needed Mimighoul Xyz monster. Going for the detach can then give you your Mimighoul Master on the field. Then with Master Search, you can grab the specific of the Mimighoul cards to then be able to summon to your opponent's field face down while still having resources on your own field to use also, and then being able to equip Throne and have an additional bounce effect for your other Mimighoul monsters to then reuse also. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy it. I'll be opening some more of the set and updating more decks, so definitely look forward to it from Rage of the Abyss. But as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.